Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Biksha and today I have a very popular classic book to recommend to you, and the book is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. This is a children's classic because the main character here is below 16 years of age when she starts out. This is also a coming of age story because the main character grows alongside the book. Now, L.M. Montgomery, she was an author from Canada and she wrote this book. This book was published in the year 1908, and since the author is from Canada, this book is also set in Canada in the fictional town of Avonlea. Now this book, it feels like a complete book in itself, but there are other books in the series as well. So if you love the first book, you are going to have a blast because then you can hope on to the next 7 books in the series, which follows the journey of this orphan girl called Anne Shirley. So the other 7 books in the series are Anne of Avonlea, Anne of the Island, Anne's House of Dreams, Rainbow Valley, Rila of Ingleside, Anne of Windy Poplars, Anne of Ingleside. Okay, so what is this book about? So in this book, we are following the journey of this orphan girl called Anne Shirley. Now, initially, the story starts out with these 2 siblings called Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert, and they are looking out to adopt a boy to help them in their farm at Green Gables in the fictional town of Avonlea, Canada. So they had asked a lady called Mrs. Spencer to do this arrangement for them. That lady was supposed to go to an orphanage and bring an orphan boy to the train station at Avonlea. As the designated time approaches, Matthew Cuthbert, he goes out to the train station to receive the boy, the orphan boy. But when he reaches the station, he is surprised that there is no boy there. Instead of the boy, there is a girl sitting there, and that girl's name is Anne Shirley. So Matthew does not say anything to the girl at first. He takes the girl home, and at home also Marilla is also surprised to find out how this mistake has happened, and she is planning to send the girl back to her orphanage. But will she be able to? You have to read the book to find out. Now let's talk about the characters. First, let us talk about Anne Shirley. Anne Shirley is extraordinary and full of life. She is a girl like no other. She has a very extensive imagination and she sees the world from a very different angle. And sometimes it is difficult for the people around her to keep up with her and her imagination and her talkative nature. The way her mind works does confuse a lot of people because not everybody can be as imaginative as her. Adults especially. Adults like Marilla are complete opposite of her. For example, Marilla is very strict. She has a very linear way of looking at life. For her, life is all about rules and discipline, whereas Anne is a free bird. But it is interesting to see this contrast. How are these 2 people who are so opposite to each other, how are they going to interact? And how is their bond going to grow? Again, there is also Matthew Cuthbert. Again, he is also a bit opposite to Anne, but he is opposite in a different manner. For example, Marilla is outspoken and she is confident, but Matthew, on the other hand, is very shy and reserved, which is a contrast to Anne's talkative nature. Apart from her imagination, Anne has another important trait of hers, and that is her very chatty nature. But despite the differences, Matthew warms up to Anne almost instantly, unlike Marilla, who takes a lot of time to adjust with Anne's personality. He complements Anne's character in a much better way than Marilla, at least in the beginning. So let's talk about, again, Anne's talkative nature. This combination of being so imaginative and also being very vocal about it is something that I found very endearing, because a lot of the times there are people who are imaginative but they keep things to themselves, especially they don't talk about the things that are going on inside their head. But Anne is the complete opposite. She talks about each and every detail that's going on in her head, and she's not afraid to be herself. Of course, because of her age, she has her own tiny girl insecurities, like her hair. She doesn't like her hair. She doesn't like her freckles. Those little insecurities she does have, but again, she's also very vocal about her insecurities and weaknesses. She is not afraid to be her own person. She is not afraid to show up her inner world to the people around her. Now, what kind of imaginative is she? She can imagine things into existence. For example, if she doesn't have something in her life, she can imagine that into existence and comfort herself with that imagination. If she doesn't have a best friend in life, she can imagine a very realistic character into existence. It's going to be a very rich fairy tale like imagination. It's like she is living that imagination. She loves to engage with nature and people and likes to imagine stories about all the people and the places. She likes to give elaborate and fancy names to the things around her, especially the things that she finds beautiful. For example, a simple pond called Barry's Pond, she would name it as the Lake of Shining Waters. And not just that, she finds beauty in every little thing, in every moment, in the whole world. The whole world seems very rich in her imagination. And here I would like to quote her words. Isn't it splendid to think of all the things there are to find out? It just makes me feel glad to be alive. It's such an interesting world. It wouldn't be half so interesting if we know all about everything, would it? There would be no scope for imagination then, would there? She is also someone who gives her all in. Either it is too much or it is nothing at all. There is no in between. She goes into the extreme, whether it's love or whether it's holding a grudge. For example, we can take the example of our best friend Dinah Barry, whom Anne loves with all her heart, and she calls her bosom friend or kindred spirit. And on the other hand, there is this rival called Gilbert Blythe. He once insulted her hair, and for that reason she held such a passionate grudge against him. And also it's interesting to see what becomes of this particular relationship, what becomes of this rivalry. She also gets into scrapes or odd situations, and sometimes it's because of her imagination and sometimes it's because of her tongue. She cannot control either of these. It is interesting to see how her relationship develops with all the people around her. There are a ton of characters in the book, and each of them are very beautifully described. Each have their own distinguishable characteristics. For example, there is this neighbor called Rachel Lynde, who is sort of this gossipy, nosy sort of neighbor who is always into other people's affairs. And then again, as I have mentioned, there is her best friend Dinah Barry. There is her rival Gilbert Blythe. There is another rival, a different kind of rival called Josie Pye. There are her other friends called Jane Andrews and Ruby Gillis. There are some school teachers. Then there is this minister called Mrs. Ellen, whom also Ellen loves very much. Overall, there are a ton of characters whom we are going to enjoy very much. Now let's talk about the writing style. The writing style is very descriptive. There are a lot of nature descriptions in the book which I found very beautiful. I'm quoting a few lines here. The water was a glory of many shifting hues, the most spiritual shadings of crocus and rose and ethereal green with other elusive elusive tintings for which no name has ever been found. Above the bridge, the pond ran up into fringing groves of fir and maple and lay all darkly translucent in their wavering shadows. Here and there, a wild plum leaned out from the bank like a white-clad girl tiptoeing to her own reflection. From the marsh at the head of the pond came the clear, mournfully sweet chorus of the frogs. There was a little grey house peering around a white apple orchard on a slope beyond, and although it was not yet quite dark, a light was shining from one of its windows. There are also a lot of lengthy dialogues, and a lot of these lengthy dialogues actually come from Anne because she is very talkative. Now, what was the vibe of the book? The book gave a very wholesome, cheerful vibe. Wholesome vibe because the descriptions, the nature descriptions especially, are so beautiful. Cheerful vibe because the main character, Anne herself, is such a cheerful, such a positive, full of life character, though her anger sometimes gets the best of her. Now, what are the core themes explored in this book? The first one would be the scope of imagination, the extent to which imagination can go, and the way it can make our lives and the world around us so beautiful and lively. It also explores themes of family and belonging, of home, of relationships, love, and friendships. What did I like most about the book? I love the prose, very beautiful writing. And of course, I love the dialogues, especially Anne's dialogues. It is very interesting to hear her talk. It is interesting to dive into her mind and see what she is thinking, what kind of imagination is going on in her head. It's not just interesting to see her talk about the world around her, but even the most mundane, general things that is happening in her life, what has happened to her during the day, what kind of people she has met, what kind of places she has visited. It is interesting to hear her talk about an endless number of things. Again, I would like to quote one of her dialogues from the book. And people laugh at me because I use big words. But if you have big ideas, you have to use big words to express them, haven't you? Now, what do I expect more from the story? Of course, I'm looking forward to Anne's journey. How is she going to grow up? How she is going to grow as an adult? What's going to happen to her imagination? How it develops further? It will also be interesting to see about her ambitions, what she becomes in life, what's going to happen to the existing relationships, and what more new relationships are going to develop. I would definitely recommend this book if someone loves classics, and even if someone doesn't love classics or is just looking out to start with classics, then also this book can be a good fit for you because this is a children's classic, and unlike adult classics, this is not very intimidating, and sometimes adult classics can be very complex, very moody, gloomy, and dark, which is not so in the case of this book. This is a very cheerful, wholesome book, and if you want that kind of vibe from a book, then you can definitely go for it. So this was all that I had to say about this book, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I hope you found this review very helpful, and I hope that this review is going to make you decide if you want to read the book or not, and I'm hoping to come out with more of such book review videos in the future. And till then, I hope you have a great day ahead, and till then, take care and see you and goodbye.